So as I said, all right. So you saw our message that this is being recorded. Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Nevada Caregiver Coalition's Conversations with Caregivers. This is a new monthly forum for caregivers to gain information and to share their concerns with us. The coalition works to create community awareness and to change public policy on the issues facing all caregivers and their families. Hi, I'm Mary Liverati. I'm your host for today. I'm a member of the Nevada Caregivers Coalition, and we are a group of individuals, organizations, agencies, and businesses who provide care to individuals and or loved ones across the lifespan. We should be seeing a slide for the our sponsor today. So our sponsor today is AARP Nevada, and you can reach them at aarp.org/Nevada. And we encourage you to do that because they have a lot of information on resources and also events that they have. So we encourage you to check that out. We also want to make sure that you know that registration is open for our annual Caregiver Recognition event. Every November, in celebration of National Family Caregiving Month, we host a recognition event for Nevada caregivers. This year's event will take place virtually on Thursday, November 18th from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. So if you want to recognize a caregiver, I think it's fantastic that somebody that lives in another part of the country could tune in and see them recognized along with you. So do you know a person, a caregiver who deserves that special recognition for their selfless work? Well, consider honoring them through this event. We are accepting caregiver recognitions and event registrations, as well as actively seeking sponsors for our event. Information about how to honor a caregiver, how to sponsor the event, and how to register can be found on our website, which is listed right at the bottom there, NevadaCaregiversCoalition.com. If you aren't familiar with our annual event, you can see highlights from last year's event on our website. Please join us for this wonderful celebration. We also encourage you to stay connected with us. The Nevada Caregiver Coalition has a website that we encourage you to visit at, again, it's at the bottom of your screen, NevadaCaregiversCoalition.com. On the website, you will find our blog, a calendar of events that we have each month, and how to join our community meetings. We meet monthly, so you can get more information about that on the website. But we also have a Facebook page, and we encourage you to like our page so you can receive updates on our events. We meet on the second Wednesday of the month from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. We're currently meeting on Zoom virtually, and we discuss issues facing caregivers across the lifespan. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, September 8th, and if you're not a member, we'd really encourage you to consider joining us. You simply have to send us your information on the contact form on our website and let us know, or let us know today in the chat so we can reach out to you after our program today. A few reminders on Zoom etiquette. I think you're probably all aware of this, but we like to do this before we start. We will have time after the speakers conclude their remarks for questions. However, if you have a question during the presentation, we encourage you to use the chat feature and ask your question or make a comment. Please mute your microphone unless you are asking a question at the end of the presentation. If you'd like to save the chat, I haven't tried this, I have to be honest, but it should be as simple as clicking on the 3 gray dots that are on the top right-hand corner of your computer. And you just click on Save Chat. I'm using a mobile device, and I know I've had trouble in the past trying to save that chat. So if you're on a mobile device, I can't guarantee that'll work. Now, if you have any trouble today with your internet connection, just leave the meeting and sign back in. We find that often that works for people. But if you have other tech issues and you would like assistance, then we encourage you to send a private chat to Marsha O'Malley or Becky Contos. There are tech wizards today and every month actually, and they're managing our meeting today. So thank you again, Becky and Marcia, for being with us. We should have a slide coming up here. Or we don't have a slide. I can go ahead and talk. I'll go ahead and talk about the speakers. It's been that kind of day, folks. I don't know about you, but I've, and I always say this, when you're a caregiver, your day never goes how you plan. So when these things happen to us in real life on other things other than caregiving, we just have to laugh and roll with it, and be flexible, right? Anyway, our topic today is challenges of living with Parkinson's disease. Over 1 million people in the US have been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, which is referred to as PD. It's the second most common neurodegenerative disease globally. Its chronic nature disturbs motor and non-motor systems, causing a wide range of complex physical and social implications that vary by person and disease progression. Recognizing many unmet needs, the Continuum continues to develop comprehensive programs for people with PD, their care partners, family, and friends, as well as educating our community. As they say, it takes a village. So we're really pleased today to have our speaker is a member of our Caregiver Coalition, Diane Ross, who happens to be the CEO of the Continuum, is here to share with you some of the Continuum's programs, and also she'll be having her Continuum team also helping us with helpful information for anyone that's affected by PD and their caregivers. And I'm really excited about this. We hear there's going to be a special guest appearance by the PD rappers. So that's something to look forward to also. So thank you for joining us. And now we invite Diane to start her presentation. Go ahead, Diane.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me and my team, who will be doing some explanations of what they do in terms of Parkinson's disease. I hope at the end of this presentation that I would have shared with you why we decided to launch this special program, how it's going to help the community, how the community helped us to launch the program. And you'll be hearing from our caregiver team. Also, I'll be sharing some tips for caregivers, not mine. I took them from a very knowledgeable social worker, and sharing the resources that are available in our community as well. And of course, the rappers, which I'm excited to share with you as well. And before I get going, I would just like to say, this pandemic has been a nightmare. We know that. I mean, I think every single one of us here who can breathe, and we're trying hard not to, right, have had awful experiences. However, one of the things that did come out of that is telehealth. And I guess if you could add one shining star to this horrible thing, that telehealth has opened up many, many doors that we never had before. And because of that, I think so many of us, especially caregivers, benefit from it. Okay, next slide. So Mary pretty much covered what's going on here. According to Nicole Mueller, who has been an advocate for Parkinson's disease for many, many years through one of the national associations, figures that there's about 7,000 Nevada citizens that have Parkinson's disease. There are more men than women who have it, and unfortunately, it's on the increase. 4% of people with Parkinson's are under 50, and Michael J. Fox was diagnosed with Parkinson's when he was 29. So I'm sad to say that apparently it is on the increase, and younger people now are being affected by this crappy old disease. Next slide. So causes, frankly, are unknown. And I will tell you that the research has been going on. They're looking for these issues, but there's so many different behaviors and chemicals and brain matter and changes that I guess it's hard to put your finger on exactly what it is. But we do know that genetics has some link to Parkinson's disease. It's not real high, but there are family members who may also have the disease. Toxins and environmental factors, toxins like Agent Orange, which would kind of explain why so many of our VA, our veterans, have Parkinson's. And environmental factors, they're looking at chemicals now that are used in the farm and in the yard that may be contributing to this issue. Head trauma, that's why we see a lot of our, well, Muhammad Ali is a good example of that, that we also are getting a lot of them head traumas coming from the Afghanistan and the Iraq war. And also, if you look at some of the sports, many of the football players and others who have had excessive head traumas and concussions have been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. The last is drug-induced, and that's heroin, which is kind of interesting, and I don't know much about that. But people apparently who do a lot of heroin do show signs of Parkinson's disease. Next slide. So pathology, I'm just going to go quickly through that. It's a dopamine deficiency, and that dopamine is a neurotransmitter which allows and regulates movement. When it goes away, we have malfunction and death of neurons, which causes all of the motor issues that we're seeing. There's also reduction of dopamine cells in the intestinal wall, which is interesting, and there's a lot of GI dysfunction. And unfortunately, at the end of the Parkinson cycle, that Lewy bodies resulting in dementia can occur. Next slide. So, like Mary had mentioned, there's different kinds of symptoms. When we think of motor, we think of people with Parkinson's disease, we think of rigidity and people not moving very well, and maybe movement and freezing and rigidity. But there's also the non-motor symptoms, which are very important, and then there's mixed symptoms as well. Neurologists are the ones that determine the diagnosis and usually recommend the course. And a movement specialist is a special neurologist with additional training in Parkinson's disease. And that was one of the questions in the request, that when we did our focus groups, we definitely need a movement specialist here in Northern Nevada, because most of the people with PD have to travel a far away in order to get these services. And in January, good old Reno did bring in Dr. Way, who is a movement specialist in neurology here. So I'm thrilled about that, and I'm sure everybody is too. Next slide. So these are the motor symptoms that most of us are aware of: slowness of movement, uncontrolled movement, walking is a difficult, frequent falls. It's very common. The client may freeze or and not be able to move for an amount of time. There's stiffness and muscle rigidity. Speech and voice are impaired about 90% of the time, and swallowing is a huge issue. And you might want to know that the most leading cause of death in a person with Parkinson's disease is swallowing and pneumonia aspiration. So those are pretty important muscles to control. Drooling is part of that, masked face, and micrographia. Micrographia is slow, teeny tiny handwriting. Next slide. And these are often non-motor symptoms that you can't see, but they certainly add to the decrease in quality of life. And they're very, very important. It's important too for all of us who are treating Parkinson's disease that we take into account some of these things that are happening. I think the frustrating thing for everybody is that if you've seen one person with Parkinson's disease, you've seen one person with Parkinson's disease. And so the symptoms vary, they come and they go. There are some that are more acute and some that are not as much. But if you look at these, I mean, these are pretty heavy duty stuff. And I highlighted sleep disorders because I don't know if you know this, but Alan Alda has been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and Alan Alda diagnosed his own. And he did it by saying that he had read somewhere about a weird thing that happens when you have Parkinson's disease. And that is when you're dreaming, you act out your dreams. And he was dreaming that he was being chased by a thief. And so he grabbed a sack of potatoes to hit the thief with. And he ended up with a pillow hitting his wife. And so that was the thing that was that led him to believe that he had this disease. Did you know that when you sleep and you dream, you're paralyzed? This is something that I just learned, and I guess it makes sense. Because have you ever had a dream where you're being chased and you can't run, or you're scared and you can't move, Well, your body does that on purpose. And apparently with Parkinson's disease, that's not the case. If you look at some of these non-motor symptoms too, one of the things you might want to look at is impulsive control disorder. Impulsive control disorder is actually induced by medication. And the most common disorder is gambling, but it can be a compulsive disorder in anything. It could be a compulsive disorder in eating or reading or knitting. It could be anything, but it's one of those things that's very difficult to control. Hallucinations are also part of medications. And so you're looking at the motor and the non-motor symptoms. Next slide. The most current interventions, of course, are medications. The carbidopa and levodopa that is taken goes into the brain and is the acts as the ability to function better in the motor skills. The problem with a lot of the medications, if you have on and off cycles, if in fact the medications aren't taken at exactly the right time, or it's too much of a dose or too little of a dose, you have something called off cycles, which means the symptoms return, and that could happen anytime. Unfortunately, side effects are a part of taking the medications, and it also, the medications decrease in their value as you take them. Surgical intervention is deep brain stimulation, DBS. This is where the electrodes are put into the brain and it controls your movement. It's effective in 30 to 60% of the people who have that intervention. And then is Duopa, which is carbidopa being injected into the small intestine through a tube. So those are the things that we need to be looking at, but we're going to be talking today about early and ongoing patient-centered rehabilitation therapies. Next slide. So I want to tell you why we chose Parkinson's disease as the disease that we were really going to focus on in a comprehensive manner. And some of it I think is synchronicity. It's one of my favorite words. But we at the Continuum have been treating people with Parkinson's disease and their caregivers for a long time. We've done a lot of the programs, and each department had a specialty in it. But about a year and a half ago, I took a webinar. I was involved in a webinar when I had an aha moment. And what I realized, and the presenter was pretty emphatic about, is Parkinson's is forever, and it's always and always forever. And it means that if you go through a program and you have had a successful outcome with physical therapy, if you don't continue with your exercise program, you will revert. So we know that we need to create programs that can be ongoing. And then along came Ann Pott. And Ann Pott is this fabulous person who lives in Carson City. Anne was a social worker in California. Their family moved to Carson, and she decided to get her master's degree virtually in gerontology. And she came to me and asked if she could, she had 300 hours to share, and she would like to use that time to help us at the Continuum. So we began to chat, and I remembered the Parkinson's program that I had taken, that webinar, and I said, you know, I'm thinking that maybe we could do more. Maybe there's more that we could do. I'm not sure, but we could use some research into what's available here, what's going on in the country, what's going on in the world, and what is it that we can do to meet the needs of our people here in Northern Nevada. Anne jumped on it, and I got to tell you, this woman is incredible. She did all sorts of research and came up with some really great, interesting facts that I had not been aware of. And so she participated in the focus groups as well to see what it is that our people here locally would like to have. and how we would launch that. So we came up with our mission, and that would be the Continuum would provide a comprehensive program, to become a one-stop shop, as well as educational and referral sources for our community. Next slide. So we had a focus group, a couple of them actually, and this is what they came up with. And the focus group are people with Parkinson's disease and their care partners as well. And what they wanted was self-management. They wanted to be able to work together with their with the healthcare providers in a respected way, so that it was a mutual kind of thing. And they wanted to improve the interdisciplinary collaboration and have a single point of contact. And they looked at the variety, recognizing that as the course of the disease changes, they needed to have a variety of services available. And it was important that the care providers understood the motor and the non-motor issues. I think that's a really important piece of it. And then they wanted a specific a neurologist that specializes in movement disorders, and that did happen. So that's a good thing. Next slide. So we had talked about, you know, what we would like to do would be to attach ourselves or collaborate with different national organizations, and there are many of them, and I'll be talking about the resources that are available. But what is it that we could do to become certified or become part of this? And a lot of the organizations require treating a huge amount of Parkinson's patients, like 700, which certainly is not us. But we had looked at a new alliance, and that's the PMD, the Parkinson's Movement and Disorder Alliance. And they were doing something kind of different. And so Anne reached out to one of their directors. Her name is Judy Talley. And it ends up that Judy Talley lives a mile and a half away from Anne. So she's a citizen of Carson City. And we met with her and had a conversation. And what the PMD Alliance had done, they are fairly new. They had broken off from another organization because they wanted to travel a different road. And what they wanted to do, and they were doing, was going into organizations like skilled nursing facilities or assisted living, and training, or I guess it'd be training every single person that would be involved with a Parkinson's disease person. And that would mean the cooks, the waiters, everybody that was touching a person with Parkinson's disease. And so she said, what if we would be the first, we'd be a test case. What if we were to train all of your staff that are involved with people with Parkinson's disease? And that meant the front desk, that meant the billing people, it meant anybody in the continuum that would have that connection. And so we really liked that idea. And so she had designed videos, like there's an hour-long video for the persons in our adult day program that are caregivers. And then there's a less time-consuming program for the front desk. So, but everybody had the opportunity to look at the videos and then take a short quiz or a test to determine our knowledge in that arena. And it was really interesting because there wasn't one person who didn't come back and say, I am so glad I had that opportunity because I know now much more about a person with Parkinson's and what to do if one of them freezes, or how to understand when their faces are lacking of emotion, that it isn't that they're bored, but that is part of the disease. And so will that help us in providing the most appropriate environment? I think it would. So additional education and training. So our goal is to provide acute as well as long-term intervention. That's what our goal is. And so I'm going to ask that, well, I'm going to tell you that the physical therapist, occupational therapist, speech pathologist, our adult daycare, and our health and wellness people all were happy to do a video for you. And so this is them in their own words as to what they do. So next slide. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carly. I'm a physical therapist here at the Continuum in Reno, Nevada, and I'm here today to talk about the Lsvt Big Program for Parkinson's disease and how we can help as physical therapists. So, the Lsvt Big Program is a research-based exercise approach for Parkinson's disease that has a standardized treatment protocol. This treatment protocol trains people with Parkinson's disease to learn how to use their body more normally. You may or may not know that people living with Parkinson's disease often move a little differently with gestures, actions, walking that become smaller and slower. So a little bit about this program. It consists of 16 sessions, and we deliver those sessions over the course of 4 weeks, coming 4 days a week in the clinic. In addition to this, a big part of our program is doing the daily homework exercises. And this is for all different levels. It can be for people with Parkinson's who come in a wheelchair. It can also be for people who have Parkinson's that are walking without any sort of assistive device. The treatment approach is totally customizable and very specialized for each individual person. So the treatment targets larger amplitude or big movements. We want to override the brain and teach it the correct amount of effort required to produce normal size movements. Like I mentioned earlier, this is an individualized approach that involves functional component tasks. These functional component tasks can be a wide array of different things, including dressing, household chores, posture, transfers, bed mobility, and even recreational activities like golfing or tennis. So we involve those functional component tasks into each person's treatment plan depending on the person, and we try and find ways that we can help each person specifically. So when should you or someone you're caring for start this program? Research actually suggests that someone should not wait until you experience disability or loss of balance to start exercise-based PT. Anyone with Parkinson's disease is welcome to come in for an evaluation, and we can assess their needs and if they're an appropriate fit for our program. Another option we offer at our clinic is an individualized physical therapy program for Parkinson's disease that is not the Lsvt program. And this is just if the 4 times a week for 4 weeks is too much for someone or does not work with their schedule, we can just do a different plan of care where we target specific impairments depending on each person. This can be walking, balance, posture, strength, or someone who's having a lot of falls. So how to start physical therapy for Parkinson's disease? The first step would be seeing your primary physician or neurologist and discussing a referral to physical therapy. After that, you would come in for the initial evaluation and we would discuss our options from there. So how can caregivers be involved in physical therapy for Parkinson's disease? A lot of times we use caregivers at home to help our patients with the external cues. So caregivers giving cues during the day for bigger movements, bigger steps, bigger posture. They can also help if there is a cognitive component to whoever has the Parkinson's disease by help keeping them on track for their exercises at home, making sure they're doing their homework. And then the last part would be assisting with any exercises as needed. So when our patients come in the clinic, we're here doing the exercises with them. And at home, we always may need a caregiver or someone just to be there with supervision to help our patients do their homework. So that is kind of a shortened overview of how physical therapy can help people with Parkinson's and how we can get them back to living their best lives.
Hi, my name is Mary Palmer. I'm an occupational therapist at the Continuum. I'm also a Power Move certified therapist, and I'll explain what that is just a little bit later. So occupational therapy is really beneficial for overall quality of life for the person with Parkinson's as well as the caregiver. We also really look at making sure that quality of life all together is where you both want to be. So whether it's your friend, your family member, whether you live together, whether you're coming in and helping them as needed or on a daily basis, We just want to make sure that the caregiver is in a great space mentally and physically in order to take care of that person. So occupational therapy looks at making sure the caregiver has the breaks that they need, making sure that they're taking care of their body mechanics, because if you're hurt, you can't really help anybody else. And then making sure that that energy and things that you need and are required to help another person, because if your tank is empty, you're not going to be able to help someone else. So occupational therapy is really good to help mentally and physically when you're a caregiver. So occupational therapy is also really good for the person with Parkinson's, as well as working with mycographia. That's a really big symptom of Parkinson's. So we use hand strengthening techniques, we use visuals, anything that person needs to just write nice and big and make sure that their writing is where they want it to be.
Before you start the next slide, I just want to throw something in with the occupational therapy, and that's something that we're doing right now. We've done before, but this has been directed specifically toward Parkinson's disease, and that's a pre-driving assessment, because there, of course, we have the motor issues, but we may have some cognitive issues as well. So it's important that we can perform this evaluation and be able to make some recommendations. Sometimes it's not to drive anymore, but oftentimes it may be compensatory strategies. In addition, Morgan, who's another occupational therapist, has a specialization in neuro treatments, and she has developed a home safety program specifically directed towards people with Parkinson's disease. And this is really a cool thing, because it's something that we need to be doing, going into the home and making sure that the home is safe and secure for people with that disease. I also think that if we can prevent, as opposed to waiting for somebody to fall, that's an awfully nice thing to be able to do. Okay, next one. Now you can show Leticia. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Leticia Alviso, and I am a speech-language pathologist who currently specializes in working with people who have Parkinson's disease. People who have Parkinson's disease can have difficulties in many different areas that a speech-language pathologist can help you with. Some of these include voice, swallow, language, and drooling. When it comes to swallow, people often complain of choking and coughing when eating. Drooling can happen at rest, when you're trying to have a conversation with someone, or when you're just sitting somewhere watching TV out of nowhere. In regards to language, people often report that they lose their train of thought and that it's difficult to articulate their thoughts. And one of the biggest ones that I'm here to talk to you about is voice. A lot of people tend to report that their voice has gotten significantly softer. They say that the volume is low, that no one can understand them, and that they often have to repeat themselves when talking to caregivers, family, friends, or a stranger at the store or at the doctor's office, etc. So luckily, there are two big programs out there that were created specifically for people who have Parkinson's disease to help them recover the voice they had prior to being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. One of these programs is the Lsvt Loud program, and the other one is the Speak Out program. I am certified in both of these programs, and I have completed both of them with my patients. And patients absolutely love these programs because it helps them recover the strong voice and the loud voice that they had before they were diagnosed. This is huge for caregivers as well, because I cannot tell you how many times caregivers have complained to me about how soft the significant other is being and how hard it is to understand them and to have a conversation with them. And with Parkinson's disease, there often comes a lack of awareness about deficits. So it is very common for people who have Parkinson's to be like, no, my voice is just fine. I am not being soft. It is just my wife that has a hearing problem. But that is not typically the case. We know that Parkinson's does tend to lead to that soft voice. So completing this program has definitely had a significantly positive effect in patients' life because they're now able to communicate with the caregiver is able to understand them. Communication breakdowns do not exist anymore. They don't have to repeat themselves. They sound good, strong, and healthy again. Another thing that I want to talk to you about is our Grad program, which is a very cool program. I am currently running the only Grad program here in Reno. And this program is for patients who have completed the Speak Out program. So patients who have completed this program then go on to join me once a week via Zoom because of COVID for now. And during this weekly meeting, they get to complete exercises with me to maintain their progress. They get to talk to other people who have Parkinson's disease, and caregivers often join us as well. We talk about new medications that may be available. We talk about new research that is out there about Parkinson's disease. We talk about new doctors that may be in town who could be able to help you. And it's really just an awesome opportunity to be social and to engage and communicate with people who are going through the same thing that you're going through and people who are going to understand. So we often also play games and have fun, and we like to get to know each other very well. This group is growing and growing very quickly, and I would like for it to grow more. So I would invite anyone who is having any difficulties, or if you know anyone, if your significant other is having difficulties, come and join us so we can complete these programs and we can regain the voice that patients had. And remember, we're also here to help with swallow difficulties, with drooling and any other language or cognitive issues that you may have difficulty with. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carrie Cunningham. I run the wellness program here at the Continuum. And one of the programs that I do offer here for people is a specialization in Parkinson's disease. I follow closely along with the programs that they offer in physical therapy, and I offer a lot of support for people once they're done with physical therapy. We can continue on with that exercise program and those techniques over here in my wellness program. This program benefits people in many ways because when you're done with physical therapy, it doesn't mean that you're fixed and all done with your programs for Parkinson's disease. It's an opportunity to continue on with those skills that you learned in physical therapy, and I can help you do that over here. Our program is also beneficial for the caregivers in many ways. I do offer a program for people that's called the Co-Care program, and what that means is for an extra $10, I will work with both the Parkinson's client and the caregiver, whether that's a spouse, a friend, a regular caregiver, doesn't matter. I can work with both of you and work more closely with the Parkinson's client. But if you have any questions, or how do we use this equipment, or little things like that, I'll work with you as well. It's a great program, and maintenance is the key to a healthy lifestyle.
Hi, my name is Christina Reynolds. I'm the Director of Regenerations at the Continuum. Regenerations is beneficial to individuals with Parkinson's as we provide daily cognitive and physical exercise. Being a club, we also provide a social setting for the individual to communicate, practice speaking loud, being physical, maneuvering around the club. We're also a respite program for care partners, which we know is very important. The care partner can bring their loved one here and know that they're in a safe and stimulating environment. At the Continuum, there's so many programs for Parkinson's, and we're just a piece of that puzzle in promoting the most growth from the programs here.
So I last week I jumped into a webinar where a very talented and knowledgeable social worker who works strictly with people with Parkinson's disease and their care partners. And she was giving some tips on caregiving, and I wrote them down and would like to share them with you because I think that they're pretty important. One is that the communication is key. We all know that. It just doesn't make any difference whether it's Parkinson's or not, right? But the importance of the ability to have open, honest dialogues to enhance the quality of life for both the care partner and the family. And she says, you know, Parkinson's disease is a family affair. There's no doubt about it. We know that you need to have that support. We know that there's isolation, there's social isolation, and it's really important that the family members, well, I think the family members, friends, the community, the world needs to understand Parkinson's disease, because that allows the Parkinson's person to feel more comfortable in socializing. She also emphasized the difference that roles and responsibilities change, and that's very acute to people with PD, because there are hills and valleys, that there are times when things get better and then things don't get better. And you don't know when it's going to happen. So that becomes like a roller coaster, and that's a hard thing to manage. And she stressed the dealing with a sense of loss, the grief that both the caregiver and the care recipient have. They both experience that. She urges the ability to find connections with others with similar issues, maybe care support groups or talking to a counselor, but being able to deal with this. Burnout, again, pretty much having to do with a little bit of all caregivers, but being unrealistic in expectations for your job. She stresses that the importance of knowing what you can do well and knowing what you can't do well. And when you can't do it, then that's when you go for help. And that's when you find the connections that you need. And then the last one was have resources for what ifs. And I thought that was pretty good. She said, if you're driving along and you have a car accident and you're not functioning, there should be something maybe in your wallet or something that tells who's ever looking after you at that time that you have made plans and that there is somebody available to help that person who's maybe at home by themselves. So I think that's a pretty important thing to have, and also to be prepared. Okay, next slide. So next steps, what we talked about was our mission was ongoing activities that are evidence-based programs. And you had 3 of those. We have the PTOT and the speech, but we also have ongoing the Loud Crowd, which is a wonderful social activity, and it's speaking with intent. Carrie's wellness program, again, she's trained in a couple of Parkinson's programs. And then the club, and the club offers, again, like Christina said, respite for the caregiver, care partner, but also wonderful activities to keep people stimulated and having some fun. So what we're looking at right now is the ongoing activities. What is it that we can provide in our community? And that can be anything from music, dancing, singing, spinning, acting, improvisation, exercise, yoga, boxing. And so these are activities that require ongoing movement, cognitive issues, but they're fun. And, you know, after a while, you get so much therapy and you're kind of done. So to be able to provide these kind of activities, I think is critical. And that's the last piece of the puzzle that we're working on right now. Also, we want to provide support groups for all those who are care partners and for those who have Parkinson's and want to share their stories as well. Unfortunately, right now, because the pandemic has come back, we've not been able to do that. And there are some that are ongoing that you can pick up throughout the country, but it's virtual. And our hope is to get back to the real life. The last thing is financial support. And one of the questions that we're asking ourselves right now is, well, that's great. We can have ongoing music and dancing and yoga and all that. but how do we pay for it? And as you know, probably know that the insurance companies aren't going to pay for this. Most of the PTOT and speech activities are covered by Medicare and insurances, but not these activities. So we're working right now on, for those, I mean, you've got Michael J. Fox and Alan Alda, and they can afford their own people privately, but most of our folks who have Parkinson's cannot. So how can we find a way to pay for these activities and have them ongoing, and so that there are options not only for the care for the person with PD, but also their care partners as well. Okay, next. These are some of the resources online that you might be interested in looking at. I will just touch on a couple of them. The Davis Finney Foundation, I had the privilege of participating in their workshops, and Davis and Connie, his wife, founded the foundation 20 years ago. And like Connie said in the presentation, we have Parkinson's disease. And so they're a great team, and they share a lot of their activities together. And once a month, Connie and Davis host a care partner program. And I think that would be great interest to participate in that. And then I just came across the Young Onset Parkinson's Network. This is fairly new. I think it's just brand new, which is sad because apparently there are more younger people being diagnosed with it, but at least they pulled together and there is a place for them to meet and greet with others. Lou Ruvo, Cleveland Clinic in Las Vegas, they are a center of excellence, and they have weekly lunch and learns, and there's some great stuff on Parkinson's disease to attend. So and they're recorded, so you can go to them at your leisure. And then there's the Parkinson Support Center of Northern Nevada. That's brand new. Nicole Mueller, who has been the APDS information and referral person here in Northern Nevada, has started that. It's all volunteer, and their goal is to provide information and referral. So that's brand new, and that's on the cutting edge. Okay, next slide. So I want to introduce you to the Parkinson's rappers, and afterwards we'll talk a little bit about them. So roll them.
April is Parkinson Awareness Month.
How much do you know?
Well, we have a message for you.
We're the Parkinson's rappers, and we're here to say, we don't let Parkinson's stand in our way.
Exercise. Socialize. Exercise. Socialize.
If people can't hear you, they assume you don't know.
It's all up there, but the voice won't go.
If you give us a moment, we'll say the words.
And we hope you'll wait, because we want to be heard.
Sometimes we don't smile. People think we're not there.
It's the Parkinson's mask, not that we don't care.
You might know the tremor. People shake but aren't cold.
But not everyone has this, as you may or not know.
Fatigue is an issue. We have so much to say.
Just check if we're better by night or by day.
Sometimes we go fast and sometimes we go slow.
With Parkinson's disease, it's a challenge, you know.
Sometimes it is freeing by the flow.
So we learn to be patient, whether stop or slow.
Might take a bit longer to process or think.
Just give us a moment. We need time to think.
Wherever we go, and whatever we try.
Depends upon if the body complies.
Isolation's the culprit. Friends don't come near.
they don't seem to get it. So then they steer clear.
Embarrassed, afraid, don't know what to say.
Please don't let our friendship just fade away.
We're sharing these thoughts to help you see
that we're the same people living with PD.
Parkinson's, it's what we have.
Not
we are.
Okay, next slide. Well, as you can see, these people have resilience. They are, I've had an honor and the great opportunity to work with many of the people with Parkinson's disease, and they are very special and they like to be heard. So to sum it all up, I want to read something real quick to you, and then we'll go in for questions if I can answer anything for you. And this is from Alan Alda, and the interviewer person said, wow, how did you react when you found out you had Parkinson's disease? And here's what he said. I began to exercise. A lot of people here have Parkinson's and they get depressed and panicky and don't do anything, just hoping it'll go away. Well, it's not going to, but you can hold off the worst symptoms. Movement helps, walking, biking, treadmills, also specific things. I move to music a lot. I take boxing lessons from a guy trained in Parkinson's therapy. I do a full workout specifically designed for this disease. It's not the end of the world when you get this diagnosis. And so with that, I think now you will understand why we decided to put together this comprehensive program. We're not done. We have a way to go. We welcome any of your thoughts and suggestions and ideas. And with that, I'll say thank you.
Well, Diane, we thank you and your team from the Continuum for your very informative talk. We do have some questions in the chat that I don't know if you've had a chance to see, but let me just start reading a couple.
Okay.
One is, how many people can you serve in your program?
Well, that's a good question.
And it may be different for the different services, I would think.
It depends. But most of the time we can get, our goal, of course, is, I think if you talked about the physical therapy program, that's 4 weeks and 4 days a week. So once those clients are finished, then we can go ahead and take others. So we can serve quite a few clients. And of course, they're all in different stages too, as well.
Right. Let's see, how often and how long is the respite opportunity for caregivers using the social club for respite?
It depends on your need. It's a private pay program, but it's also, we have a number of scholarships available through the Aging and Disability Services. We have money there, and it really, when Christina interviews the person and the family members, they determine what their needs are. And if it's a couple days a week, that's fine. We have some that are here 5 days a week because their caregivers work. So it varies. It's our goal is to be to meet the needs of each individual.
Great. Is there a big difference between the national Parkinson's groups? It seems like there's quite a few of them, when you put that list up.
There are, like the Michael J. Fox is really more research, and he's raised a lot of money just for the research. But there are some that are for advocacy. The Dave Finney does advocacy, they do education. They've actually been here to Northern Nevada a few years ago. So yeah, each one of them has a sort of a different kind of a goal. The organization that has certified us has some really cool forms online, like to what you should ask your doctor or that kind of thing. So yeah, you'd have to kind of explore to see which works for you.
Great. I just want to bring everybody's attention that Marsha O'Malley has put in the chat how you can reach out to Diane and the Continuum. So we've got that contact information there if you're interested. And we're pretty much running out of time, so we'd love to have more questions, and I suggest that you contact Diane if you've got more questions about the programs. But Diane, we do thank you for your time and the team's time. We love the PD rappers and their message, of course. But I just want to give you one last opportunity if there's anything you want to say as a wrap up.
Oh, thank you. I would just say thank you for allowing us to share this program. And maybe more important, if you have ideas and suggestions, things we may have left out or forgotten, please share with us, because this is a community thing. We would like to have as much involvement as possible. So thank you.
Well, we really thank you today, and we want to thank again our sponsor for today, which happens to be AARP. We've given you their website, aarp.org/Nevada, if you'd like more information about their resources and their events. I also want to thank again Marsha O'Malley with Mindful Media Services and Becky Contos for their technical assistance on our meeting today. We have a great committee that works together to provide these conversations, which includes Cheryl Donnell with the Nevada Lifespan Respite Care Coalition and the Nevada Aging and Disability Services Division, Deanna Hearn, who is our chair of our coalition, Riley Franco with AARP, and Lisa Davis with Renown Health. I want to just quickly tell you about our program for next month. We do this every month on the third Monday of the month. I don't know if the slide will be brought up or not, but I will tell you. There we go, yay. Our next topic is going to be caregiving resources for veterans and military families. It will be Monday, September 20th, and we start again at 1 p.m. Pacific time. So please invite your friends that may be interested in that topic. So we know that caregiving for a loved one often results in extra stress, no matter how rewarding the experience. This conversation will be dealing especially with military family caregivers because of the different cultural differences between military and civilian life. So we have with us Evan Rush, who will be talking about resources available to veterans and their military families. He's with the Nevada Department of Veteran Affairs. And Riley Franco of AARP will be talking about resources they have available, followed by a seated yoga session, which is sponsored by AARP. It's a free class by I hope I get her name right, Jahaira Farias. She's a U.S. Marine Corps veteran and certified yoga instructor. So both the caregivers and their care receivers are welcome to attend our meeting next month. I've sat through this it's a wonderful yoga class, and she is an amazing person. She'll tell you a little bit about her story, but she's wonderful. So I really encourage you to come next month or check it out on aarp.org. She has a class every Tuesday. I think it's at 2:00. So 4 times a month. I want to remind everybody that all of our conversations, again, take place on the third Monday of the month at 1 p.m. So we want you to mark your calendars and join us for each one. But we do record all of our events and make that recording available to the public on our website shortly after the live presentation. Everyone here today will receive a follow-up email with information to access that recording and details about our next Conversations with Caregivers event. We are always interested in topics of interest to caregivers for future events. And of course, so we encourage you to contact us and let us know if there's a topic that either you or caregivers would like to hear about. And we also welcome new sponsors. So if anybody out there wants to sponsor these, we are happy to have you join us with that. So I'd just like to thank you for your attendance today. We look forward to seeing you hopefully next month and months thereafter. Goodbye, everybody. See you next month, and thank you for joining us.